Hello kiddos, nice to see you all again. Hey, calm down, keep it down unless it's only Wednesday. Anywho, how would you like to have yourself a quiz? Good! So in today's game plan, you're going to have a very simple question. Imagine that you are now a multi-million-dollar company. Yes, that is a lot of moolah. Now, after a tons of years of hard work, you end up just doing a tiny little oopsie. And by an oopsie, I obviously mean that you are completely alienating your fans for the game that they've been playing for a decade or so and just made it completely awful. Also firing your employees when they speak up against you because they disrespected your authority. And of course, not to be forgotten, all the sexual harassment that ended up in us finding out about the proverbial hellscape that is nothing less but a Cosby suite.
Oh my god!
Wow! Hey, this is a game show. Laugh. Good! So, the questions are, what do you do? Here are your options. A. You completely dismiss all accusation under the pretext that they were not representing the values of your company. B. The obvious second best answer, you hire a woman, put her in a high position, and make sure that she appeals to the female sympathy. Or C. Third time the charm. You can blame it on the fans, berate them on their appearances, call them toxic, and just, say that they're ugly. That works. Or D. Actually, take a step back, evaluate your choices, reflect on what you've done, give the people a sincere and complete apology, and do better. What do you say, little Timmy? What is your choice? I will say D. Very funny. No, obviously it's all of the above beside D, because fuck you, we are Activision Blizzard. Howdy there folks, Jack here with another video. Please do not mind the weird animation that is going on there in the background. It's something... Background? Jesus, it's in the foreground, god damn it, what is happening with me? Anyways, this is a working project. I'm not turning into a VTuber, please. But speaking of V5, this I think is the 5th time that I am actually talking about the gaming industry, and I hope that it will not be the last, because it is quite nice content that I like to do, because it allows me to just speak to you freely, as I always do. But now, right on topic. In the past month, we've seen the video game industry being chastised by fans, the public, and just about everybody in the media, because it is well deserving. Not for the poor workers who actually do their job correctly and have not had any involvement in any of this, that should be a given, but to the sweaties and hotshots with terrible personalities and fingers that just cannot keep for themselves and ugh. So, let us begin with the Fallen King. I think that very little hasn't been said that has to be said about this already. It's awful, but a recap nonetheless. May 2021. At that point, the game subscription for World of Warcraft, at least its player base, is about half of the number that it used to be. Glory days are over, and they are trying to do their best to survive on Shadowland as far as they can. And of course, they are also promoting the heck out of classic TBC. The Burning Crusade, that is. But in the words of Arthur,
no king rules forever.
As the downfall was not brought by no Final Fantasy Online, nor was it by some Jeff Bezos game that can't even figure out how to do a running animation. I'm sorry, I know it's been patched out, I kinda have to clown on it just a little bit. New world! Woo, let's go! No, the enemy came from within. Stemming from what just seemed like an everlasting winter of mismanagement and some horny boys who just could not keep the grapplers to themselves, the game got brought to its knees. Close to the end of July, the state of California's Department of Fair Housing and Employment filed a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard following a 2-year investigation of what can only be described as a kerfuffle. This was covering the frat house / frat boy mentality in the workplace that led to sexual harassment, a death, and of course the Cosby suite. Now with that said, there has been discussions where some people will be like, hey, don't talk like that about the boys. And look, I understand, it's alright sometimes to lose a few IQ points and behave like an idiot, but as long as you can regate them the day after. And to that I can try to appeal at any type of brain that you may have, like what type of sympathy do I have to reach here? Like, Alright, you may not have a sympathy for the victims who have been subjugated to something that should never have happened if they were treated as human beings. That's one thing. But then you can also think of the fact that these dumbasses let the game turn to ruin because they were doing that instead of actually developing the game. Some people within the company has been perpetuating this type of behavior and just letting it happen. Now I do say some because it is very likely that it's just a handful of characters out there, but it must be said because I do not desire to have anybody going full Larson on me like, is that a personal attack on something? Because one does not even have to speak too much to see what is happening. The numbers speak by themselves. The player base across the Activision Blizzard games, or should I rather say Blizzard because Call of Duty doesn't count here, is around 26 million active players. And this is across a hell of a lot of games. We're talking about Hearthstone, Hero of the Storms, Overwatch, a delayed Overwatch 2 that may never come out, World of Warcraft, and as I found out, some people are still playing StarCraft 2. Guys, I know, it's a good game, okay? I just want to clown a bit. But mind you, these are the numbers equivalent to 2016. They managed to revert 5 years of development, just like that. It's quite impressive. And for the fans who have left not because of the complaints, have done so because the biggest streamers had been leaving the game. Preach recently did that. The guy who made TBC so much fun. He and his posse have decided that due to the current situation, they don't even feel comfortable to be covering anything war related anymore. But also because they see that WoW has literally pushed players away. In addition to that, Matt Season also left, making that video No Kings Rule Forever. As he explained that even WoW Classic, the one thing that was supposed to keep him going, did this, as I quote, "The only reason I stuck with Classic is because it was a promise to be a re-release on the game in a state before it was bastardized beyond redemption." As he continues, and they flat out lied about it. As proven with the character boost, I feel like this was such a betrayal of the Classic community. Now you hear this, and some of you will have this in mind. This is actually pretty good criticism. I mean, they're attacking the core subject, so that's nice. But there are also those who would be putting on a pink shirt, binding their hair in a bun, and being like, "How dare you!" There is a Greta Thunberg metal cover. It's really pretty funny. Well, if you are the latter, you are most likely one of those WoW devs who have been literally attacking players personally because of the constructive criticism of the game. Now, are all players super well mannered and very nice to speak to? No, not all of them. It's the internet. But now let's turn our gaze to the biggest one of them, Asmondgold, who today again had to issue a statement saying the following. "Recently, more than ever, I've been accused of harassment when I had the audacity to defend myself on my community. The idea that I should allow myself to be attacked is driven by narcissism and entitlement. I don't punch down, I don't punch up, I punch back." Now mind you, the reason why he answered this way is because over the last few weeks, there has been a constant barrage of tweets from developers attacking other players personally. Now, it cannot be denied that some people may actually have experienced threats from individuals, right? This occurs. It is deplorable behavior, and Asmon, for one, always mentions that within his streams and bans people who dare do such things. But the simple idea that there is a belief that he has created some hate squad of people who are just going there and perpetuating hate is absolutely ridiculous. As I've mentioned, the complaints that not just him, but a bunch in the WoW community have been bringing has always targeted the game first and foremost. But when you, as a developer, go and attack somebody personally on his lifestyles, his life choices, his looks, how are you expecting him to just swallow it up? That's ridiculous. And I mean, my god, if they attack you and you defend yourself and then suddenly you show surprised Pikachu face, what are you supposed to do?
Systems in the game create more toxicity than I ever could. This is the game being programmed to be toxic. I know, obviously, I probably shouldn't say things like this, but I'm not a pussy bitch. I'm not gonna let people sit around and talk shit to me. That's not what's gonna happen. Especially somebody who's a systems designer should spend more time doing his job. Ass. Before you call me toxic, deal with your own fucking game. And then for them to hide behind the idea that I'm the one that's toxic. Like I'm the one that does this stuff while they're molesting people. They have people getting molested at their company. But I'm the bad one for saying to spit on somebody with a store mount. Whenever I criticize a system, whenever I criticize something in the game, I never attach a name to it. I never say this person is bad. But then whenever you take something and you make it personal towards one person, and if you read these comments of a lot of these different tweets and shit like this, this is not constructive criticism. These are people that are insulting my appearance. They're insulting my lifestyle, which is degenerate, right? But this is just not grounds to criticize a person on in this way. It's just not.
But guys, I really would love to know your opinion on this whole situation. What do you think? Has Asmondgold's reaction been accurate? Has he gone overboard? Let me know in the comment section below. I like to reply to you even. That would be cool to have a conversation there. But with the greatest transition of all time, we're jumping now to GW.
Never had an adventure like this. It's everything you've dreamed of and worlds more. It's Super Mario 2, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
As a new Warhammer fan, I had to go and look and as well as consult a bunch of people to educate me on the history of GW. As I found out that the disputes of this company has not truly been something that was new, but it just got exaggerated in the last few years. For example, after recording a video on StarCraft 2, I went ahead and tried to figure out what the whole story behind them and Blizzard had been, as I found out that GW had a trademark on the word Space Marine, a generic term that had been widely used in science fiction for decades. Like hell, are they going to be suing Starship Troopers? If you take a little trip through memory lane, you will find that in 2013 there was already a discussion as to how the word Space Marine would have been removed from even books. Yes folks, the current IP hunt that GW has engaged in to combat not only the fan creations, the modding community and miniatures creators as well, is something that went so far back to the point where they used the trademark to remove novels from Amazon from having the phrase in their titles. That is insane. But with the newly launched terms of services, including that of an individual must not create fan films or animation based on the community has been in uproar. And while I am no lawyer and I cannot go too deeply into the specifics of the 4 factors of the intellectual property, what I can say is that there is a big difference between fan work, con artists and grifters. Now the following that I will be citing is something that I accidentally found written by Cory Docborough, who has a blog, who gave a rather concise explanation on the situation as for now and agreed that GW has kind of engaged in.
A few moments later.
Felt like I was going down on energy there. Well, he introduced with this: a con artist is just a gabby mugger, and when they vanish with your money, you know that you've been robbed. A grifter, on the other hand, is someone who can work the law to declare your stuff to be their stuff, which makes you a lawless cur, because your pockets are stuffed full of their money and merely handling it over is the least you can do to make up for your sins. I like this guy already, he has my sense of humor. Now, if one is a business owner, one should familiarize oneself with the 4 types of IP. These being copyright, patent, trademarks, and trade secrets. Copyright for one will have a suite of limitations and exceptions under various global legal systems, so all depending on where you are, it tends to vary, but including the US laws, for example, we have something specific, well, a set of specific exceptions colloquially called the fair use, which is of course the subject of what many are up in arms about. For under fair use, someone accused of copyright infringement can ask a judge to find that the use of someone else's copyrighted work is permissible, because to deny it will be something that is harmful to you, perhaps your previous user base, and, well, they just call it the fan base. Now, of course, the specific of the fair use is very important here. We're talking about who's making the use, what are they using it for, and how much of it are they actually using. Which is why one cannot simply say that X is fair use or X is not fair use. And that very ambiguity is the thing that is causing a divide within the community, because there are still some individuals who are saying that it is fair enough that Games Workshop is doing this. I would argue that having a competition against your own fanbase sounds very weird, but, well, what do I know? What is for certain though is that despite the constant complaint, a bunch of people are still going to line up to adhere to what GW is doing, because of their love for the hobby. Like a week ago, I checked a video about Midwinter Mini, who is an actual painter on YouTube. I highly recommend that you check that video out. I'll leave it in the comment section below, at least a link to it, where he explained his work as somebody who was underpaid in a GW shop, where most minis are actually sold. Yet he enjoyed it because of the importance of coming there. Because unlike many other franchises, GW finds itself in a very special situation where not everything has to be made through a digital medium. Actually having to write the rule books and all that crave that you actually are somebody who puts an investment and loves the franchise to memorize everything, all the rules, and include them there properly. So it's a huge plus, and one that certainly should be rewarded accordingly. And he had this to say about the entire ordeal.
To be honest, for a company the size and financial shape of Games Workshop, I don't really understand why this is an issue in the first place. Your staff shouldn't just be paid enough. Maybe not even competitively, but generously. If you're a company owner, director, manager, it's the absolute best way to ensure that all of your staff are bringing their A game to their jobs, value and enjoy their time at work, appreciate their employers, and actually have the resources to enjoy their time off when they actually have it. And this attitude will also let Games Workshop, now one of the biggest companies in the UK, bigger than Marks and Spencer's, set a positive example for the rest of the industry.
Now, no matter how you twist and turn it, the common denominator here that allows GW to have this massive profit margin year after year is the fans' engagement. For to me, it seems like the fanbase has just as much an influence on the first step of the three-step process of putting your product out there, that being creation, and the next two being protection and the actual entry that affects the market value of something. Now, this is where I need you to hang out with me here, because I may come with some terms that may be a slight bit confusing. So, there are three prepositions that may help me personally understand what is happening with GW. When you're trying to secure your IP like this, is obviously because you are in a protection phase. But the protection phase itself is dictated by the creation phase, the innovation, you making something new. Now, whatever choices you make for your protection phase determine the expected profit from the innovation and the incentive to do so in the creation stage of whatever product that you are doing. Now, industry characteristics will therefore influence market outcome through two channels: their effect on the IP portfolio choice should innovation occur, and their effect on the incentive to innovate in the first place. So, in layman's terms, you have the case of, for example, Warhammer Plus, something that they've launched because they had a desire of making a profit by innovating. But said innovation already stems from the fact that there was a pre-existing product made by fans which they had a desire to capitalize on. But that is not the end. The leader, GW, has to go into a second proposition, that being the competitive nature of the industry, which has a non-linear effect on IP usage. For leaders increase their patenting and secrecy on the threat of followers' entry increasing. So Proposition 2 implies a counterintuitive relationship between competitive pressure at the industry level and competitive outcome at the market level. Now, when we're talking competition here, and what market we're dealing with, please let me know what competitors it is that is the biggest threat to GW right now. Wizards of the Coast, give me a break. No, if the threat that they've been fearing is literally the fans themselves, then I find it to be deplorable. Because I know that many have said this before, and I will just say it again, I very much doubt that the work of some YouTuber and his posse, his team, is something that is affecting your bottom line. Now, Proposition 3 is something that goes a bit more in depth with the competitive nature of the market, but that is not our interest here. For the be-all and end-all of this is that Warhammer is an intrinsically participatory and co-creative and active medium that is not just being consumed, but it is a media that you also produce. And GW just seem to hate the fact that their pockets have grown fat from all of this. For if you just go a bit down memory lane on different sites, you will see how much lamentation there's been from people who have supported the game that GW kind of ignored. And the more Warhammer players complain about the indiscriminate censorship of their fan media and so on, the harder GW crack down on them, wiping out the whole game genre creative work. The modders recently have been wiped, or at least are going to be. Now, on his blog, Corey actually goes in deeper depths, covering the fact that GW themselves over years have been pretty much grifters themselves. For if anybody has ever read a fantasy book or sci-fi for that sake, will realize that a lot of the elements in there are inspired from other works, yet still they are making it their own. Now, I will not go and try to argue for any of that. I'm sticking with the thing that I became a fan of, Warhammer 40k. And it is all very saddening that all of this is occurring, to the point where I actually was contacted by a fan who wanted me to read you all a message that he had in heart. This guy is a towering beast who should pretty much just be an Astartes himself, but he had this to say. It's not easy to be a 40k fan these days. To be honest, the past week or so has been pretty depressing. It feels as if I'm in an abusive relationship that I can't escape. On the one hand, here is a hobby that I spent years into, spent $10,000s of dollars on, and I'm honestly emotionally invested to a degree with the lore and the progression of the story. On the other hand though, is a company that mistreats its employees, act in complete disregard to things that have been bothering the fanbase for years, long before the TTS saga, and is now actively trying to force limitation on the way the fanbase has fun. In the comparison, the Star Wars IP is owned by Disney, and even fucking Disney does not get the panties in a bunch over fan animation. When you lose the moral high ground to a company like motherfucking Disney, how can you be so obtuse? It has become clear to me that nothing will change as long as we do not affect GW's bottom line. I for one will not buy any GW product in the foreseeable future, and I call on my fellow 40k fans to do so as well. There are ways to play the game and enjoy the hobby without lining the pockets of people who prove time and time again, and now more than ever, that they do not give a shit about us as a fan base. There you have it, folks, from my friend Engron. I know a bunch of people that were so looking forward to Warhammer Plus, the thing that has been memed over the last 2 weeks now, extensively. I think that I've seen perhaps like 20 versions of that look forward to Warhammer Plus thing, and they have all been pretty hilarious. But people were doing this not to support GW, but to support said people who were employed by them, those who brought them towards the hobby. And now that support is something that many are trying to boycott, and that is fair. Now, I know that there are still going to be a split out there. People still want to buy new rule books, new models, and so on and so forth. And I can't blame you for your decisions. It's all coming to the individual. But I would like to know what your thoughts on this are. Please leave them in the comment section below, and I will